always criticised Harry and Meghan for was going ahead with this interview knowing how unwell Prince Philip was. And you actually reveal, Hugo, that it was worse than what people even knew at the time, and that his medical team reported to nearly losing Prince Philip twice.
Prince Philip nearly died. Twice! And I'm not talking about some rumor or tabloid gossip. I'm talking about confirmed details from inside the royal medical team. Details that have been buried until now by a man who met with the late Queen over 40 times in 55 years. Hugo Vickers. He's a royal historian, not some click-chasing influencer. In his new book, he reveals that while Prince Philip was in the hospital in early 2021, his doctors nearly lost him on 2 separate occasions. 2! The nurses had to be completely COVID-free, isolated, working around the clock. The family was preparing for the worst. Now here's where it gets sickening. While this was happening, while a 99-year-old man was fighting for his life, his grandson and his grandson's wife were sitting down in a California mansion recording the Oprah Winfrey interview. They knew. You already know what I'm about to say, don't you? They absolutely knew, and they went ahead with it anyway. And look, we all remember that interview, the one where they threw a grenade into the heart of the British monarchy with false accusations of racism and neglect. The timing was always disgusting, but the full horror of what was happening behind the scenes was covered up, silenced by the very people who should have been screaming it from the rooftops. Piers Morgan lost his job for calling out the lies.
It was a disgraceful exercise altogether.
Yeah, I mean, Piers Morgan obviously lost his job, didn't he, for saying that it was a lie? I mean, I was quite lucky at the time, Hugo, because I was a columnist for the Daily Mail and was just about to start at GB News, and they allowed me to report the truth, actually, which is that this...
But Vickers, this careful historian with impeccable access, he just confirmed that the medical team reported nearly losing Philip twice. The interview aired on March 7th, 2021. Prince Philip died on April 9th. You do the math. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a choice. I need you to stay with me here because this goes so much deeper than one interview. This is about a pattern, a cold, calculated pattern of cruelty that started long before California. Here's the thing though, the Queen, God rest her soul, she saw it coming. Hugo Vickers quotes her directly after Megxit. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the words are burned into the history books. Harry has opted out, and for what? To be a carer for Archie. She actually used that word, opted out. The woman who grew up watching her own father unexpectedly become king after the abdication, who dedicated her entire life to duty, watched her grandson throw it all away to be a carer. And she knew deep in her bones that this life in California wasn't going to work out. It was almost a premonition. But wait, it gets worse. You know how the mainstream narrative always painted Prince William as the big bad wolf who told Harry to slow down with Meghan? That's the story they want you to believe. Vickers confirms it wasn't just William, not even close. Charles, then Prince Charles, took the same line Lord Mountbatten once gave him. Have fun, but don't marry her. And the Queen herself, she suggested Harry should wait a year, a full year. So 3 senior royals, the future king, the current king, and the Queen, all saw something. They all had nervousness about Meghan Markle.
So it wasn't just William who had nervousness about Meghan. It was Charles and the Queen too.
And what did Harry do? He told her. He told Meghan what his family said. And that, my friends, will never be forgiven. You don't recover from that. You just don't. Now, here's where I need to slow down for a moment. I'm going to speak quietly to you. Just you and me, no cameras, no noise. Think about this from the Queen's perspective. She's in her mid-90s. Her husband of 73 years is fading. The empire she held together through war and scandal and tragedy is slipping. And the one person, the grandson she adored, the cheeky redhead who played cricket with kids and made her laugh, he's making demands. He's exploiting her. She had to have a lady-in-waiting present every time Harry and Meghan visited with Archie, just to stop them from taking photographs they later use. Let that sink in. A grandmother couldn't be alone with her own grandson because she didn't trust him not to weaponize the moment.
It was such that, she used to have her lady-in-waiting present when they came and brought the children to stop them taking photographs which they could subsequently use,
That's the reality they created. That's the distress Hugo Vickers says cannot be overstated. And you know what stress does to an aging body? You know just like I know. It breaks it down. Actually, wait. Let me rephrase that last part. it's not just stress. It's the kind of stress that comes from betrayal, from watching someone you love dismantle everything you built while smiling for cameras. The Queen looked terrible when she came back from Scotland in October 2022. Vickers says she was lucky to make it to the Platinum Jubilee. They were so worried about her health that they rushed through a garter appointment for Camilla and even Tony Blair on January 1st because they feared she wouldn't survive until April. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes panic that was going on while Harry and Meghan were posting their polished Instagram statements. We were all celebrating her 70-year reign, and she was quietly falling apart. And before I get to the part that ties this all together, the part about Catherine, I need to tell you about the gardener. Yes, the gardener, because it tells you everything about character. According to multiple sources confirmed by Vickers, Meghan was rude to staff. Not just once, several times. She was rude to the undergardener. The head gardener reported her to the Queen. And the Queen, this tiny elderly monarch, got in her car, drove down personally, and ticked her off.
Will never be forgiven. But actually, there was sort of several examples of her being rude to staff. I mean, I heard, that she was rude to the gardener, the undergardener, and the head gardener reported this to the Queen. The Queen got into her car and drove down and ticked her off because you're not.
You do not mistreat staff. That's how the Queen operated. Dignity, class, and Meghan, well, you know the rest. And then there's the birth of Archie, the weirdest royal birth in modern history. The timeline doesn't add up. She's the only woman who apparently gave birth and then went into labor later the same day. They lied about the time, lied about the location, refused to name the godparents. Why? Why all the secrecy? If you're building a brand of transparency and victimhood, why hide the most natural thing in the world? You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to see it's just off. Hugo Vickers called it crazy business. I call it a pattern of control. She was always going to do it her way, whether it made sense or hurt others or not. Now, this is the part nobody talks about. The connection between all this and what happened to Catherine, Princess of Wales. Members of the royal family, and I'm telling you this from sources who were inside those conversations, they believe that the relentless stress from the Sussex attacks exacerbated Catherine's cancer battle.
But there are people within the British royal family, and there are members of the British royal family who do believe that stress is a big part of exacerbating cancer, and that Catherine's cancer battle.
You heard that right. Stress is a known aggravator of serious illness. The late Queen's distress, the constant media wars, the accusations, the Oprah interview itself while Philip was dying, all of it created a toxic environment that took a physical toll. Vickers won't come out and say it directly because he's too careful for that, but he admits the distress didn't do good. It certainly didn't help matters. And when you add Philip's death, the weight of the crown, and the Sussex grenades, is it any wonder Catherine's body reacted the way it did? We all felt that something was deeply, spiritually wrong in that family, and now the physical evidence is undeniable. I want you to think about the Queen's final phone calls with Harry. Vickers reveals she refused to be alone during those conversations. She didn't want to be alone. What was she afraid of? That her words would be twisted? That the conversation would be secretly recorded and sold to the highest bidder? This is a woman who faced down world leaders, who comforted a nation after Grenfell and during COVID, who spoke to us from Windsor Castle as a young girl during the Blitz. And she was scared of a phone call from her own grandson? That's not a family, that's a hostage situation. And yet, through all of it, the Queen stood firm. She gave us that legendary "recollections may vary" statement.
Recollections may vary statement that came from the late Queen and has become quite legendary. But at the same time,
She didn't retreat into mourning when Philip died. She kept going because she knew if she stopped, she'd never start again. But the grief hit her hard in Scotland that summer. It always does. Hugo Vickers paints a picture of a woman who was profoundly hurt but refused to surrender, while the people causing the hurt cashed Netflix checks and accepted awards in Hollywood. I've been covering this for years, and it still makes my stomach turn. So here we are. Philip nearly died twice while they filmed a character assassination. The Queen suffered a distress that can't be overstated while they played victim. William, Charles, and the Queen all saw the red flags and were silenced by a narrative of bullying. Catherine fights a cancer battle that insiders link directly to the toxic stress. And Harry, the man who was once the most popular royal, doesn't look happy now. Hugo Vickers found an old Hello magazine from 2015 with Harry smiling, and he said, "He doesn't look happy now, chap."
Copy of Hello magazine lying on the floor, and I picked it up and I looked at it, and there was Prince Harry smiling and happy and things. So I thought, goodness, what's this? And then I looked at the date, 2015.
Yeah.
Meghan. He doesn't look happy now, poor chap.
No, he doesn't. You can see it in his eyes. The question I keep coming back to, the one that keeps me up at night, is this. What kind of person sees their 99-year-old grandfather fighting for his life and thinks, now is the perfect moment to sit on a couch and tear the family apart? What kind of person drives the Queen to need a chaperone for a visit with her own great-grandchildren? What kind of person makes a dying woman feel like a prisoner in her own castle? The answer isn't comfortable, but you know it already. You've known it for years. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. The evidence is right there in the book, Queen Elizabeth II, A Personal History, written by a man who dedicated his life to the truth. He met her in 1968 and didn't stop until she was gone. He's the closest thing we have to her voice now, and he's sounding an alarm. The distress caused by Harry and Meghan cannot be overstated. It had consequences, real, physical, devastating consequences. And the people responsible have never faced a single day of real accountability. They're still out there, still smiling, still spinning. So tell me in the comments, do you think Harry and Meghan even paused before that Oprah interview? Do you think they ever, for 1 second, thought about what was happening in that hospital room? Or was the money and the fame and the ratings just too sweet? Because from where I'm standing, the answer is written in the ashes of a great monarch's final years. And it's unforgivable. I'll see you down below.